Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. My name is Cassandra, and this is the You Never Would Have Known podcast. We have an episode today that is a subject that's really been stuck in my mind for as long as I can remember. And today we're going to be talking about the case of Tara Leigh Calico. Before we get started today, I just want to tell you about an awesome sponsor I have for my episodes. It's actually through the app that I make this podcast on called Anchor. It's completely free, and there's a creation tool that allows you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer, which is exactly what I do. They also distribute your podcast for you. So I'm on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and so many more places I wouldn't be without them. It's completely free, and you can make money with no minimum listenership. If you go to the Anchor app right now, or you can go to anchor.fm and you can get started today. All right, so let's jump right into this episode. So Tara Leigh Calico, her name might not sound familiar to you, but I think that once we get started with the story, you'll probably know who I'm talking about. This picture specifically just really stands out in my mind of a missing persons case that really sticks with me. And even though you might not remember her name or her story, I think that this picture is just a really big deal. So Tara Leigh Calico, she was born February 28th, 1969, and she lived in Belen, New Mexico. She was described to be a super outgoing girl. She was an extrovert. She loved to read. She was physically active. She would go for a bike ride almost every morning, and she worked as a bank teller. People just really loved her. She was studying because she wanted to become either a psychologist or a psychiatrist. And her mom says that she was highly motivated and she would never ever leave the house without telling her mother. They were very close. Her mother's name is Patty Dole, and her stepfather, his name is John Dole. So one morning, Tara gets up and she decides to go for her bike ride that she goes on almost every day. And every day on this bike ride, she takes the exact same route along New Mexico State Road 47. Her mom had gone with her before on these bike rides, and nothing bad had ever happened along this route that she took every single day. So there was no reason that she worried about it. And as she was leaving the house, she turns to her mom and makes a joke that, if she wasn't home by noon, her mom better come looking for her because she was going to go on a date with her boyfriend at 12:30 and they were going to go play tennis. So she was very excited. She had lots of plans, not only in her day, but, for her whole future. And she was going to go on her bike ride and come home, and she was just really just a happy girl. So 12 o'clock comes around and Tara is nowhere to be found. Her mom thinks that's really weird, so she gets in her car and starts driving up and down the route that she bikes on. And like I said, her mom knows this exact route because her mom has gone with her on these bike rides before. So she's driving up and down the route, and there's no sign of her. Her bike's not there. She's not there. There's nothing there. She can't find her. So her mom decides to call the police. And so the police start looking for her and they can't find her either. So the police start asking witnesses. And a few people remembered seeing Tara on the road. And some of them even remembered seeing a light colored pickup truck that might have been following her. So the police are still looking for her. There's no sign of her anywhere. And people start saying, she was 19 years old. Maybe she ran away from home. But her family completely denied this. They said that there was no way she would have ever run away from home. She was, a super bright girl. She was very enthusiastic about life. She had a bright future. She had a great job. She was studying. She had her boyfriend who she loved. And even her stepfather said there was just so much she wanted to fit into a day. She was like a little machine. It was amazing. So there was just absolutely no way in their minds that Tara could have run away. So they know that she must have been taken, but they can't find her anywhere, and they're looking for her, as just searching for her everywhere. So about 9 months later, actually, in June June 15th of 1989, in Port St. Joe, Florida, about 1,500 miles from where Tara disappeared. A woman is in a parking lot and she sees a man with a mustache, about in his 30s, getting into a white Toyota van. And as the van pulls away and she walks by where the van had been, she finds a Polaroid photo on the ground. And in the photo, there are two people in the photo. There is a woman and a little boy, and both of them are have like they're gagged, basically. They have things over their mouths. So immediately this woman goes to the police and turns in the picture and tells them what she saw. So once this woman goes to the police and tells them that she's found this photo, the police decide they're going to start looking for this vehicle that this woman has seen. And this was a pretty small town. So what they do is they set up roadblocks, hoping to intercept the vehicle and locate the driver. But the driver must have already left town because they never did find him. So they ended up showing this photo to Tara's parents. And they weren't sure at first, but the more they looked at the photo, the more they were convinced it was their daughter. She had a scar on her that was the same that Tara had. She had a discoloration on her thigh that was the same as Tara. And she also, in the photo, there is a paperback cover of a book by V.C. Andrews, who was Tara's absolute favorite author. So once Tara's parents saw all of these things in the picture, they were absolutely 100% convinced that this was their daughter in the photo. So the FBI ended up doing an analysis of this photo, and the FBI said that it was inconclusive. They couldn't decide if this was the photo. But the Scotland Yard in the UK also decided to look at this photo, and they concluded that it was Tara Calico. So we have the FBI saying they're not sure. We have Scotland Yard saying that they are sure, and Tara's mother saying that she is absolutely sure. So we're pretty sure that the woman in this photo is Tara. And this was just found just a couple of months after her disappearance. But unfortunately, even the discovery of this Polaroid, it didn't lead to anything. They still weren't able to find her. So people's next question about this photo is who's the boy in the photo? So for a while, it was believed that the boy in the photo was a boy named Michael Henley. Michael Henley disappeared in New Mexico while on a hunting trip with his father. He disappeared in April of 1988. And so for a while, it was believed that Michael and Tara were together in this photo. However, they ended up finding Michael Henley's body in New Mexico, just 7 miles from where he had disappeared. And it was believed that his body had been left where it was left months before the Polaroid had been developed. So there was no way that it could have been Michael Henley in the photo. And the photo had been taken in May, and Michael's body was believed to have been left there in April. So it wouldn't have added up to be him. However, in 2009, years after this happened, the Port St. Joe police chief, David Barnes, he received 2 envelopes, both postmarked. One was postmarked June of 2009 and one was August of 2009, and they were from Albuquerque, Mexico. One contained a photo. It was on printer paper, and it had a black band drawn over the boy's mouth, almost as if to imitate the Polaroid photo. And the second letter had the original photo without the band over his mouth. And they looked at these photos. They tried to figure out who this boy was, but there was nothing. They weren't able to figure out who the boy was from these photos. The letters didn't have a return address or a note that would help with the child's identity. It was just the pictures, and they weren't able to figure out who it was in the photo, unfortunately. So at this point, this case is almost 30 years old, and they still have not found Tara. In 2013, there was a task force put together to reinvestigate her disappearance. But nothing has come of that. In 2003, her parents actually decided to move from New Mexico to Florida. And her mother was quoted as saying that there in New Mexico, there was nothing she could do that didn't remind her of Tara. So her family is still looking for her. Her family is still heartbroken that she's missing. Um, and this has been on tons of crime shows, Oprah, Unsolved Mysteries, 48 Hours, just tons of shows. And nothing has come of it. The only other evidence that they have is that in 2008, a sheriff from New Mexico said that she knew what happened and who did it. She said that there were two men who were teenagers at the time of the disappearance, and they were believed to be the people who were following Tara on her bike. And some kind of accident happened, and in a panic, they disposed of her body. But she said that without any remains, she couldn't make an arrest for them. And this made Tara's parents super angry, because why would you come out and say, oh, I know who did it, but I can't do anything about it? Like, it just was really frustrating to them that she would do this. Another witness came forward and said that they saw that day a white or light colored pickup truck with a camper shell in the area, and they saw it following Tara, and they believed that the passenger in the truck was the 18-year-old son of a local law enforcement officer. So some people believe that that's why her body hasn't been found, or that's why the police didn't work hard enough to find her, because they all knew the killer in this case. They knew who had done it because he was the son of a law enforcement officer. Similarly to this, in 2013, there was a person who was dying, and on their deathbed, basically, they confessed that they knew the three men who were involved in Tara's disappearance. And they said that one of the people involved was the officer's son, and they believed that the bicycle had been thrown in a junkyard and that they threw Tara's body into a pond. But there have been tons of different leads in this case, and that happens a lot with missing persons cases where everyone thinks that they know something. But there have been reports that Tara had been raped, that she had been stabbed, she'd been buried in concrete, and someone said that she had been put in a freezer. And of course, Tara's parents having to hear all of this, it's traumatic for them. But nothing ever leads to the discovery of her body, unfortunately, which means that even if the police officer's son was the one who did it with these two other people that people saw, there's nothing that they can do because they can't find a body. And they've investigated these things that people have said. They've looked in the pond, they've looked in these different places, and they've never found her body. And the absolute final evidence that there is there are two other photos that have been found that people thought could have been Tara. There were tons of different photos that people thought were Tara, but there are two specifically that are the most believable to be Tara. So one is a blurry photo of a girl with tape covering her mouth. It was found near a construction site in California, and Tara's mother believes that this picture is of her daughter. The second photo is a woman who's loosely bound with her eyes covered. She's on an Amtrak train, and this was from February of 1990. Her mother doesn't believe that this one is Tara, but she's not really sure. And no charges have ever been brought from either image. So, it's just all up in the air. No one's really sure about the photos or about any of the evidence, really. And, the hardest thing is that her body's never been found, so there's nothing that they can use to connect all of these different things or to make any charges against anyone who witnesses think they've seen commit these crimes. And that's all the evidence there is. At this point, Tara has been missing for over 30 years, and there's never been any sign of her other than these photographs that may or may not be her. Her parents obviously are still looking for her. There's a podcast completely dedicated to her disappearance. There's task force looking for her, but no one has ever found her body or her or any evidence that she is alive or dead. So nobody's really sure what happened to Tara Leigh Calico, unfortunately. If you happen to know what happened to Tara Leigh Calico and you have any information, there is like a $20,000 reward for any details leading to the identification and location of her from the FBI. So that's, maybe you want that money. That's a lot of money. Just saying. But yeah, unfortunately for Tara and her family, she has never been found. So yeah, that's really all there is for this episode. It's kind of short, very sad. But that's all that there really is for today's episode of You Never Would Have Known. And, I hope with every part of me that Tara is found and that, her family can have that closure or get to be reunited with their daughter again. That would be the best thing. But even just to get that closure that they deserve would be enough. So thank you guys so much for listening. And I will see you all next time. Bye.